Welcome back to Stationeers. And today the beta branch on Steam is quite broken. Aliases are broken in all kinds of horrible ways. So I thought we'd set up something new and just as a tutorial episode. Nothing really getting on with my base, but I had some comments about how I did the previous setup. So I just want to, some comments about how I might, want to change the previous setup. So you remember I have all these switches. And what I was really tracking is an easy way to do it, which is to basically say, if this one is pulled, then it's a number 1, this is a number 2, this is a number 3, this is number 4. The downside with that, and it works fine as long as you only want to track one switch, which is exactly what I want for this setup. I'm only going to be pulling one ingot out at a time, so I don't need to track more switches. But as a general problem, let's say you wanted to track lots of things. So, for example, if there's a gas sensor inside there, it says, is the temperature too high? Is the pressure too high? You can set them up with electronics, but they come down to a 0 or a 1 value, to trigger something else. And the more of those you have, the more limited you end up with on ICs. There's only 6 pins, remember? And dealing with 6 pins nicely, I mean, there may be ways you can just change the pin, allocations and stuff, but dealing with them nicely, you might want one IC that goes and gets all those values and passes those values to another IC. The problem then is that you think, hang on, well, how do I pass all those values to another IC? You either have to have lots of, sort of programming work to say what the other IC should do, and you contract it to a single value, like yes or no. But if you need to pass all those values across, then you're going to need to do it somehow. So, for example, you can see, is the filter out in this, and is this pressure too high? But we can just abstract that by just thinking about them as on and off switches. So you've got lots of stuff on your base, and you want one IC to just receive one value. You want to use one pin, and you want to receive as much information as possible. Well, this is where binary encoding may actually help. So what's binary encoding, you may ask? Well, I did mention it when the ICs first came out, but we don't really have any kind of binary types in game so much. What we can do is we can store the value of this switch. Let's say it's 1, this one's 0, this one's 0. You can store that as a value of 100, and you can extract that value back out to know that the first switch is 1, the second one's 0, the third one's 0. You get the idea? You're using a decimal value, but because you're only using 1s and 0s, it's effectively a binary value. Now, the problem is we don't have bit shifting, and bit shifting would make it really, really easy to do this, because if you're interested in the third value, all you need to do is shift everything. If you don't know what bit shifting is, basically, if you think of 1, 0, 0, if you bit shift sort of to the right, you land with 0, 1, 0, and you bit shift again, it goes 0, 0, 1. So you're moving the value across, and you're losing the first 2 digits. But when you do that, you gain a nice little 0 or 1 value, because everything to the left of that 1 here is going to be 0, and everything to the right ends up being nothing. So you can just extract the value. Now, we don't have bit shifting, I don't think. So there's a couple of ways around we might want to deal with it. So let me just assign these pins. Let's just say these first 3 pins, because three makes it easier, and the program not too long, and I don't occupy more of your Sunday. So let's, or whatever day you're watching this later. Okay, so let's get that sorted. So it's going to be iron, gold, and copper, and I'll do that off camera. There we go. Iron, gold, copper. And I've pulled the iron switch, just as an example. So let's just edit this. I'm not going to be able to use aliases, as I said, so let's just assume that D0 is going, well, D0 is iron. So let's just write this in a comment just so you guys can understand. D0 is iron. I wish it wouldn't do that. I really, really wish they would sort out deletion of lines properly. D1 is, and this is, I appreciate this is really hard to see because comments are grayed out, but nothing I can do about color either. And D2 is copper. Okay, so those are our 3 switches. And now we need to do something with them. So let's just bring up the function thing. And I'm just doing this not because I need it, but because you can follow along with what I'm actually doing. I can see if I want to load a particular switch onto a register. So load onto R0, D0, and then setting, I would assume. Why would it move that down when I press enter at the end? Honestly, this editor is it causes me no end of grief. Just because I'm used to an actual editor, I'm used to not being another line below where I'm actually editing, so I have to enter to actually create a line in a text editor. And actually, I want to change that to R1, don't I? R1. Let's keep everything straight. R2, D2 setting. So we're just loading the switches in. Job done. Now we need to encode them. So we're going to go and basically, I think we're going to multiply up. Yeah, so let's just look for multiply. M, multiply. There we go. So store in a register the basically A times B. Okay, so if we want, we can arrange this however we want. You can arrange iron to be the rightmost or the leftmost in the binary value, but let's just assume leftmost here, so the same as the switch layout, so you can keep this idea in your head. So multiply and store back in R0 the, in fact, let's just put it in R3 just so that you get the idea. And we're not mixing, we still have these original values available to us if we want them. In actual fact, I would just put it in R0, but not while I'm actually demonstrating it. So we're going to take the value of R0 and times it by 100. And then we're going to multiply and put it in R4, value of R1 and times it by 10. And then we don't need any more. But even though we don't need it, multiply R5. Yeah, put it in R5 and you R2 and then 1, but that's equivalent to just R2. So I guess we could just move it, but I'm going to leave that instruction in. It's entirely useless, so I'm going to put useless here, but just demonstration. Okay, you get the idea. So what's then going to happen is we've now got if the first switch is pulled, we've got a value of 100. If the second switch is pulled, we've got a value of 10. And if the third switch is pulled, we've got a value of 1. We just need to add them. Oh, why do you do this? Please fix your editor. So just add them. So back up to add. There we are. And again, we can just use, let's just say R6. And we want to add R3 and R4. Okay, and store it in R6. And then we can do the same thing again, add and store in R6, but this time we want R6 and R5. And let's just actually store this in the device. So store into the device, back down to S, so store, there you are, in the device, the setting, and then the register. So setting, and R6 in this case. So let's confirm that and export it, and let's see what happens. So it's 100, cool. And now it's still 100. Oh, I didn't put a yield in a loop, did I? Oops. We need to just take care of that. So just here, yield J0. It's muscle memory. I code at work, so that's that. And export. So are you now 1010? Yep, you are. I can pull this one. Yep. And I push that one back. Yep. Oh, actually, that's not going to be what we need. That's going to be a problem. Yeah. Because what I actually want is that's going to be a problem decoding. That's going to be a decode problem. Okay, so let's just have. Can we actually separate that? That's a good and interesting problem. What I may have to do is have another representation for 0. 0 is not going to work. So we may have to invent a whole new form of binary. 1 second. Okay, welcome to binary that's in every way worse than proper binary. Okay, so all I've done is literally add 1. So you see when they're all off, it's 1, 1, 1. And when any of them are on, let's say number 1 and number 3, we've got 2, 1, 2. Just because I need to keep the representation of the switches. And if there's some binary type that we could have Rocket works, yeah, that would be great. Also, bit shifting also would be great, make this much simpler. But you know, we can probably get around it. So now we've got, well, hopefully, we've got the encoder saying 212, which is 101, really, i.e. the first and third switch are on. You'll see I've also got a second IC here called decoder. That's set to 1 at the moment. It's looking at the right switch, but not directly. It's looking at the encoder, and the encoder is 212. So how are we getting 0 or 1 from this? Well, you see, if I just close that again, 0, 1. And it doesn't matter which one, you know, if these are opposite, still says 1, still says 0. Okay, so we are correctly getting the value. So let's have a look at the code for that. You might think, oh, I can just look at the last value. Is the last value 2? Well, how do you get that? You can't just, in this case, you can't just take off 120 because you don't know what the 120 value is going to be. You know, if I pull this one, it could be 220. It's not going to work. So in this case, the first value is quite easy. Okay. Now, I did look at mod, i.e. modulo, but it does say here in the documentation, register equals a mod b, note not a percentage b. Slightly annoying. Don't worry about the difference between them. It just means I'm not going to be able to use it exactly the way you might think. So, well, if you indeed have an idea of why I'm going to do it, and I'm sure some of you may well want to improve this program, please put in the comments if you do. Put a paste bin for other people, or you know, link to stationeering.com or something. So for the first value, we're basically going to take the modulo of and store it in R1 of R0 and 2. That's basically saying, is the value even or odd? Now you can't do it as 1. It has to be 2 because it's basically going to say it's going to divide this value by 2, and then you're going to get a remainder, and you know, you're going to get a 0 or 1 from that. Now, what we then need to do is essentially reverse that. So if these two things aren't equal, then it's going to put 1 in R1. So if it's 0, i.e. if it's even, then these two things will no longer be equal, and that will be stored as 1. Why is it even? Well, because the last value is 2, which means our first switch, our right-handmost switch, is on. Okay, so if it's on, the whole thing is even, and then we can just basically store a 1 in R1, and then we just exported R1 to the, you know, the setting value, just so I can see it quite easily. All right, so that's the first value, and I'm not going to press enter here. It's probably going to have problems if I do. So then we need to get the second value out of here. For the second value, I think we can just get away with a bit of division. We can't use mod. So for example, let me show you why we can't use mod. So if I just do mod R1, is it R1? It's going to be R2, sorry, because we're going to want a separate register for this. R2, and then R0, and let's say 100. Okay, I'll show you what that's actually going to do. Let's just export for a second. So you'll see what happens here is we now have 21, because it's 2, 2, 1. But if we mod 100, it's going to divide exactly by 100. And we're going to get with 2, 1 left. But that doesn't help if you have many more switches, because this could be, you know, it could be 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 1, you know, etc. And, you know, you're never going to be exactly right, though. We want something that's exactly right all the time. You can't do mod 200, because then it's going to divide again exactly by that. So if it's a larger number, so that's out. What we can do, however, is just divide by 10. So if I just get rid of this line and divide by 10 instead and export, now what we get is 22.1. Okay, 221, 22.1. And then we can get rid of the 0.1 by using, I think it's truncate. I'll pull it down here. Register is A with fractional part removed. So let's just hope that's the case. You know, quite know with some of this stuff, but R2 and R2. Fair enough. One of these days, I am going to get a joke in about R2D2 in these whole programs, but not today. Okay, so now we've got 2, 2. So we got the first 2 of here. So we end up with 2, 1, good, 1, 1, etc. Good. So we now have the second value available. That means we can just repeat what we've got up here, I think. So if we do mod R2 and then R2, 2. So basically, is it odd or even, store it back in its own register. We don't have to do anything else. And SNE R2, 1. And that hopefully should give us the second value. Export. All right, so second value should be 1 right now. 1. Good. 0. 0. And does it matter if I open any of the others? No, it does not. Good. So now I've got the second switch, and as you might be able to tell, I think we can do the same thing again. So, but this time what we're going to do is divide the original by 100. So you'll see, even though we don't really have an actual binary thing going on, what we do have is an ability to get to each of the values. Even though the 1 and 2 instead of 0 and 1, we're still using dividing by tens and hundreds just to shift around the decimal point. So divide, let's say, and put it in R3, and take R0 and then divide by 100. And let me just clear a few lines because I can't use the enter key after the end of a line apparently right now. So truncate R3, R3. Yeah, see. Then mod R3, R3, 2, and SNE R2, R3, R3, 1. Okay, and then we can just export R3 here. Okay, and that, let's just confirm it and export it, and let's see if that actually works. You'll notice that the amount of code we're using is not scaling up for each switch. So, you know, for the 6th switch along, we're not having to do like 6 instructions, we still only do 4 instructions. So it's quite nice and scalable. In fact, technically, we probably, you know, we're just skipping at the bit in this first bit where we're basically saying divide by 1 and then truncate, but those 2 instructions are useless. You know, just like the encoder, I could put them in for demonstration purposes only, but I think you get the idea. Dividing by 1 and then and then dealing with it, it's not worth bothering about. So that is fine. So let's just take a look. Is this now tracking the 1? And let's just open a couple of the others. Still 1. Still 1. Closing it. Now it should be 0. 0. 0. Good. So what we've done now is complete, I think. Now, people in the comments, hopefully you'll find something more efficient. I haven't found anything more efficient, but by all means, you will need those 4 lines, unless there's a better way around it. But this seems pretty good. I'm pretty happy with this one. I know it's obviously a short tutorial. It'll stand apart from like proper builds, but if you need to take lots of inputs, put them onto a chip without using all the pins, you only use 1 pin for all of the inputs, you can do this. And you can chain this. So if I take this whole encoder here, and this has got 6 inputs and it's got a setting on the output. As long as you make sure to, I suppose you could chain it by using only 5 and then having a 6th value for another encoder. But all you'd have to do to really chain them is have it so that you can add them decimally. So, you know, you might add, on your second one, you might add 6 zeros at the end, you know, multiply it by 6 zeros, a million? Yeah, multiply it by 1,000,000 and then add the 2 values together and then export onto the setting of the second value, on the second chaining thing, and you end up with that. Or you can use two pins, obviously, like I did for the ingot remover. That will work perfectly fine. But you can condense this down up to the limit of whatever maximum value is available for integers, and I assume that may be. In fact, I don't actually know. If anyone knows, please put in the comments below what's the maximum value of integers. Because remember, we're using 1 and 2s, so it's going to be a value with all 2s up to a certain point where you run into the maximum value of an integer, and then you can't actually stack anymore. You'd need a second encoder and a second pin on your decoder. But that should give you by far more than enough to capture any values and just put the input as a pin, single pin, on your decoder, which is basically the chip that all of your main programming runs on, the center one in my case over there, but in your case, that leaves you with 5 outputs, and those, well, 5 outputs, or you could put another input if you wanted to, but there's no really need to if you're using another chip for that. But that would make it easy to track 6 here, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 inputs if you wanted, and 1 output. Or you'd have, you know, everything on there, and you'd still have 1 pin, so you'd have 5, 6 outputs because you've got the base as well. So that should give you more than enough with just this little bit of code. And yeah, so I'm going to just go into edit mode, and I'm just going to go into my library. I will put a paste bin to each of these. So let's just say binary decoder, and I'm going to save that. Make sure. Overwrite, yep, confirm, and then I'm gonna do the same thing for the encoder, and I'll put them both into a paste bin, and you'll see them in the video below. So, yep, quick, well, I say quick, relatively quick tutorial on how to binary encode stuff from one chip to another across your entire base. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Hopefully it's been useful for some of you. I realise not everyone is into IC stuff. Particularly not complex IC stuff, but if you have a complex hydroponics thing going, that may be something you want. If you have a complex sorting systems, again, that may be something you want. I just want to leave it there for general use. So let me know if you can think of any specific uses. Otherwise, yeah, we'll see you next episode for more Stationeers. So feel free to like, subscribe, comment, share, click the bell as you might otherwise do, and let me know in the comments below, really, if you've got any questions. All right, as always, guys, thanks for watching.